I have a dream, that's all I need. I'll make it happen with some work and belief. Know what I want, so I'll take it on. I've made mistakes, but mistakes make you strong.
Hi there! My previous video was about poor people and how the decisions they make is highly impacted by our current situation and mindset. Let's call it the circumstances. It was about scarcity, the thinking of scarcity, the tunnel vision you get when you have scarce resources.
Hide the money, y'all! There's poor people around! With your broke ass!
But now I thought it would be a good idea to make a video about rich people and how most people assume that all rich people are a-holes. Rich people are just greedy bastards. Rich people only fend for themselves. Rich people live off the backs of the poor. Yeah, you heard them all.
The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Yep, because you keep doing the same crap that causes it.
And how most of our decisions are based on our current status and context, typically also our mindset. We make decisions based on our current situation and maybe the minimal information we have, instead of going out and getting more information. But let's look into that. A couple of years ago, I attended a conference on traffic deaths and how to mitigate them. And as a funny aha moment, a small experiment was made. All attendees were supposed to pick up their name tags, so these were split into two different tables with around 150 name tags on each, ensuring that we could split the group into two equal-sized parts without anyone getting suspicious. Each table had a questionnaire with 2 questions. They had to fill out these questions before joining the conference. The questions were about how many people died last year in traffic-related deaths in the EU. However, the crucial point of this setup was the two groups didn't receive exactly the same questions. What the participants didn't know was that the framing of the questions was a bit different. Group A got the questions. 1. Did there die more or less than 5,000 people in traffic-related deaths in Europe last year? Here they could choose more than 5,000 or less than 5,000. The second question they were asked was a blank field where it said, how many people do you think died in traffic-related deaths last year? Please write the number. While Group B received a slight variation. Their question 1 was different, while their question 2 was identical to Group A. Their first question was, did there die more or less than 200,000 people in traffic-related deaths in Europe last year? Here they could choose more than 200,000 or less than 200,000. The second question was the same. How many people do you think died in traffic-related deaths last year? Please write the number. Thus, the groups were giving 2 different contexts in question 1. Group A had a context around 5,000, versus Group B had a context around 200,000. The expectation was that this would affect their answers to question 2. We humans cannot ignore the immediate context when we have to do decisions or answers. Whenever we have to do something, we need some kind of reference, especially when we're not sure about it. So, what was the result of this little experiment? Well, here's the average answers to question 2. Where they had to take a guess on how many people died in traffic-related deaths in Europe last year. Group A, average number was 9,856. Group B, average number was 197,655.
What?
In other words, Group B guessed over 20 times higher, simply because we gave them a different context to begin with. And what does this have to do with rich people or empathy or anything like it? And poor people's poor decisions for that matter? Well, everything. It turns out that context changes much more than just our way of answering questions. It changes the way we behave. Status and money are a good example of this. Myth: rich people driving don't hold back for pedestrians. Well, yes, there's actually quite good evidence that wealth has an unfortunate side effect, and it has repeatedly shown that it is context that creates it, just like poverty did in the previous video. Two researchers from Berkeley University, Paul Piff and Dacher Keltner, they have been recognized for their research on how wealth affects personality. And in one of their famous studies, they observed this pedestrian crossing. And they clearly noted that people in luxury cars were much more likely to speed past a pedestrian crossing the street, even if they had made eye contact with them beforehand. In the cheapest car classes, 0% drove past. Everyone held back for the pedestrian. But in the group with the expensive cars, about 50% of the people drove past without stopping, even though it's illegal in California. And this was where the experiment was conducted. Maybe you're thinking right now that more men drive expensive cars than women. And that is more a question of gender than a car brand question. But this behavior applied to both women and men, regardless of how busy the street was, what time of day, etc. The researchers went further to show how this less empathetic behavior can be created very quickly by simply putting people in a temporary context where they feel economically superior. For this test, they created a series of famous Monopoly games. The procedure was simple. Over 200 students from Berkeley were invited to play Monopoly against each other, one-on-one. By an initial coin toss, this is important, they were divided into one of two groups, the privileged group or the non-privileged group. The privileged group received a number of blatant and unfair advantages in the game. For example, they got twice as much money to start with, they had an extra die so they could move around the board faster, and they had a double bonus when they passed start. How did the players react? Well, the researchers saw a dramatic behavioral change in the privileged players. They spoke louder, had a more dominant and noisy way of slamming their piece around the board. They exhibited clear body language and dominant signs and became more rude. And even more amusing, they ate more than twice as many of the pretzels that were set in the bowl for both participants. And here is a striking extra dimension to the study. When the privileged players were interviewed about the game afterwards, they were strangely blind to their crucial objective advantages. For example, they spent a lot of time explaining how their strategy was crucial to the victory. They had completely forgotten that the only reason they won was the coin toss had made them rich to begin with. And what can you use that knowledge for? Well, are all rich people greedy bastards? No. Are all poor people stupid? No. Hopefully you know that it's more nuanced than that. The idea with these videos about the rich and the poor is more to show that the context for people, the situation they're in, whether it's a question at a conference or an advantage in Monopoly, shapes the way we see the world and who we are. Does this mean we don't have a responsibility for what we do? Not at all. But it means that there's more to the story than prejudice and conclusion about rich and poor.
My father, who Tom knew,
Lovely man, Bruce.
he sat me down one day and he said in his inimitable Brooklyn way, "You're kind of turning into an asshole."
A good quote is, "Money doesn't change you, it amplifies who you really are." Think about that for a second.
Printing T-shirts and selling ink pens and, anything and everything. Yeah, and then the fact that you have a 20-year career of failures and then you do a pirate movie and that buys you an island. I'm still exactly the guy that used to pump gas, I'm still the guy that was a mechanic for a minute, I'm still exactly. I just happen to have a weirder job at the moment, There was a guy who I worked with many years ago and we were talking about success and money and all that stuff. And he told me this one thing, he said, money doesn't change anybody. Money reveals them. Same thing with success. And I believe that, you know, wholeheartedly.
If you are a passionate person with a high degree of empathy, you will probably be a lot better person when you're rich. I have long time wondered about the fact that a lot of rich people give a lot to charity, and the media usually spins this into something bad. Well, the rich only give so they can get the tax deductions. Bad billionaires. Well, not really, or should I say, not only. We won't say no to a tax deduction, but the initial thought of giving to a worthy cause, that is the dominating part. It's rewarding to help others. And I can't explain it. I don't know why. But I have noticed that people giving a lot also receive a lot. Some say it's karma, some say it's the hand of God. I don't really think so. I think it's a part of human behavior. Generous people generally attract a lot more than greedy people. Listen to Jim Carrey's story. It's quite funny.
I had a substitute teacher from Ireland in the second grade that told my class during morning prayer that when she wants something, anything at all, she prays for it and promises something in return, and she always gets what she wants. Well, I'm sitting at the back of the classroom, thinking, wow, my family can't afford a bike, So I went home and I prayed for one. And I promised I would recite the rosary every night in exchange. Broke that promise. But 2 weeks later, I got home from school to find a brand new Mustang bike with a banana seat and Easy Rider handlebars. Yeah. From fool to cool. My family informed me that I had won the bike in a raffle that a friend of mine had entered my name in without my knowledge whatsoever. So that type of thing has been happening to me ever since. As far as I can tell, it's just about letting the universe know what you want and working toward it while letting go of how it comes to pass. Your job is not to figure out how it's going to happen for you, but to open the door in your head. And when the door opens in real life, just walk through it.
And social science is confirming this. For instance, in the study, happiness runs in a circular motion, evidence for a positive feedback loop between pro-social spending and happiness, researchers found that giving helps form a positive feedback loop that helps generous people experience better lives, which in turn encourages them to be more generous. Acts of generosity are much like acts of exercise. Both activities are mostly beneficial when they're a habit, a regular part of your lifestyle. Healthy people are often better at it, but it's also a path to better health. Neither exercise nor giving is a one-size-fits-all. There is no one way that fits everyone. Sometimes you feel really clumsy, but like exercise, doing something is better than doing nothing. Other research supports this. For instance, here is just a few of the benefits that come from a generous lifestyle. Generosity helps us connect with others. Researchers have discovered that deciding to give activates the portion of your brain which produces oxytocin, the hormone which promotes social bonding. This speaks to the strong connection between altruism and social connections. So it may partly be benefits of a strong interpersonal connection that motivates us to behave selflessly. Generosity reinforces positive emotions. Well, in fact, generosity often triggers chemical systems in the brain and body that increase pleasure and experiences of reward. It reduces stress and suppresses pain, which tends to lead to a greater happiness and health. Scientists have uncovered that when research subjects acted generously, their brains would release dopamine, the neurotransmitter that helps control your brain's pleasure and reward centers, again reinforcing that giving helps you and your body. Giving reinforces the perception of living in a world of abundance and blessing. Well, not only does practicing generosity help us cultivate our own contentment, people who give perceive themselves as more blessed in life compared to others with similar incomes and circumstances. In a society that says having more is key to contentment, generosity is crucial. Generosity also helps us combat selfishness. Researchers at University of Pennsylvania found that in a strategic game involving multiple people, being generous and cooperative led to more success than selfish strategies. You might think, being generous in a strategy game, that doesn't pay off. But when many players play generously, they all benefit. A rising tide lifts all boats. Everything points to the conclusion that generosity is the path to wealth after all, especially if you measure true wealth as abundance of meaningful relationships, contentment and satisfaction. So to sum up, no, rich people are not all greedy bastards, only the very few. They were probably selfish bastards before they became rich. Rich people believe the pie is not finite. If someone else has success, my opportunity does not shrink. The opportunities increase for us all. Generosity leads to real happiness. As mentioned, there's a psychological benefit as well as a physical benefit from being generous. Helping others succeed will help you in many ways. Even changing one person's life is enough to spend the time and effort. Life is short. Rich people usually realize life is short and we only have one shot at it. Even though we collect all the earthly wealth we can find, we can't take that with us in the afterlife. So why not try to make a lasting impact on the world and others? On that metaphysical note, I'll end the video and hope you'll give it a like. Hope to see you in the next one. Remember, the best investment you can do is in you and others. See ya!
I have a dream, that's all I need. I'll make it happen with some work and belief. Know what I want, so I'll take it on. I've made mistakes, but mistakes make you strong. Let's break it down for a minute. I want the crown, I'm gon' get it. You hear me loud, man, I'm winning. Yeah, Charlie Sheen will be grinning. These ladies know that I'm sinning, and this is just the beginning. I'm closing in the night inning. There ain't no point in resisting. Living